In this video I'm going to talk about how to remove this panel here. They call it the wing. The way it's constructed is that this piece comes down here and this is all part of it here. So this is all welded together or riveted together, and this doesn't really come into contact with the radiators. So it is screwed in a number of spots along here, underneath here on a couple of brackets, and along the front in here. To remove this, a couple of things we need to do first. Now, a few things that I've done here you won't need to do, but you will need to remove the front bumper. You'll need to remove the wheel liners. You'll need to remove the headlight. On the right hand side you will need to remove the fuel filler flap. And on the left hand side, inside here is where the washer bottle is. I've made videos on how to remove all of those, so take a look at those to remove all of those. And then once you've done that, then we can start to remove things from here and remove the wing itself. On the right hand side only, you'll have the dryer for the air conditioning system. There'll be a single M6 screw up the top there, just remove that. And then there's a little hook here that it hooks into. This can be a bit of a pain to try and get out, so when you're pulling this out, don't just sort of let it do that. What you'll need to do is hold it and rotate it so it goes straight down, and then that will allow it to come free. So it's going to hook into that there, and there's a little thing on the underside there that's going to hook back into. Again, when you're putting it back in there, make sure you don't sort of let it rotate around. Put it in straight, and then it'll slot straight in. After you remove the fuel filler flap, you'll have the locking mechanism here. There'll be an electrical connector connected to that. So we need to just disconnect that, so just pull that down and then just pull that off. It'll still be connected via this plastic lanyard which goes up to the front up here, which is the manual unlocking if this thing fails. We're going to remove that later on. All of these rivets that we need to remove, they look like that. They've just got a little plunger that just is flush at the top there. The best way I've found to remove these is use a pick tool like this. It's got a 90-degree bend. Then just going to put it on like that and then just push it out, and it'll just sit there like that, and then you can just grab the other end of it so you don't lose it. And then obviously we're just going to have it fitted like that when we install, put it in place, and then just push it in with our thumb. Really important that if for some reason you mar the edge of this, sand it back so it's nice and smooth again, otherwise it's going to make it pretty difficult next time to put it back in. Prior to disconnecting any of the screws, etc., that hold on this, we need to remove first is this piece of plastic trim inside here. And to be honest, this is probably the most difficult part of the whole job. And the reason is it's got to slide out of here, and there's very little gap. I'm not sure if you can see that. There's only maybe there's less than a centimetre of gap, and this needs to come out of the top here, which sounds simple enough, except up the top here there's a flap that slides underneath the panel as well, which makes it a little bit more difficult. So it's got 3 rivets, 1, 2, and there's another one up the top here that I'm going to push out using that technique that I showed you before. Push it out rearwards, and I'm just going to put my hand inside here and grab that and pull that out. And then this thing will come loose, but then to get it out, there's just not much room, and there's the risk of damage as it slides out here on the leading edge. So before you start, you may consider putting some masking tape along here and sort of wrapping it around that edge there so you don't do any damage to it. And then what I'm going to do on the inside here, there is the little arm that restricts how much the door can move and puts it into those notches as you open the door. I'm going to disconnect that, and that'll allow the door to open that a little bit further, which will give me a little bit more room in here to help me out. And once you've pushed the stem out rearwards, grab hold of it from the other side, and then get the rivet and push it out from the front here, and push it out and grab hold of it on this side. And to allow me to open the door a little bit more, I'm going to remove this screw here, and I'll be able to open it probably another 10 degrees or so. There's some stops here on the hinges that won't let it go too far, but that'll open up a little bit more in here to allow us to get that out. With the door arrestor disconnected, I can open the door a little bit further. It'll want to flop closed all by itself, so I've just propped it open with a box, so it's sitting like this. And now this plastic trim piece will be loose, and I can remove it. What I'll need to do is get in here and sort of push from the inside here. That I need to sort of push it down a little bit, as well as sort of pull from the bottom down here. to get it free, and I'm going to rotate this out that way. And whilst I do that, I'm going to get my little fuel opener here, and I'm going to thread that through the little hole that's there and allow that to go back so I can remove the fuel flap lock. Getting the manual release for the fuel flap installed here is a bit of a pain, so what I'd suggest, and certainly the thing that I found was easiest, was on the underside here, pull it all the way forward and feed the cord through, and then I've just taped it to the panel here, and then I can slide that trim all the way down, and then once I've got it in place like it is there, then I can untape that and put that through the hole and plug it into that spot there, and then it'll be good to go. Also, when you're putting this plastic piece in place, have a look down the bottom. It's a bit hard to show, but it's pretty obvious that it sort of needs to hook into a spot down the bottom and behind the trim down here. But also this big flap that comes out, that has to go underneath a little lip that's on the underside here. So make sure that goes into the correct place in there. And then what should happen is all the rivet holes should line up happily. Underneath the headlamp area, you'll have a single nut here that needs to be removed, and there's also two up here. So there's one there, and there's another one underneath here. What we'll do first before we remove those though is we're going to remove the headlight tray and disconnect those electrical plugs here and here to get everything out of the way. To remove the headlamp holder, which is this thing here, there are just two M6 nuts here, just using a 10mm socket. So we're just going to loosen that there, and the thing just pulls straight out. Up inside here, there is the airbag sensor. So there's a single M6 nut, so 10mm socket. Go on that, remove that, and then at the top here, there's a little plunger because this thing's sort of pressed up into the panel up here. You're just going to push that down, and this will just come free. At the top here, there are a couple of little connectors that hold on to the electrical harness. So this one here holds on to the airbag detector sensor, so you can just push that down. This one here is for the headlight, push that through, and there's one here which goes to the bumper. Connection points along here, we've got this screw here which connects the panel to the chassis. We've got a rivet, a plastic expansion rivet here, which connects the this piece here, this plastic piece, the door entry guard, as well as another screw down the back here. They need to be removed. In addition to that, we have that nut there, that's part of this panel here, as well as up the top we'll have another one of those screws there and another one up the top there. So they are the connection points all the way along here for the panel. To get access to the 4 screws along here, you'll need to remove that trim piece along there, and then all these come off. All these screws take 10 Newton meters because they're all M6. Those that have been painted over, like this one, make sure you use a good tool, the T30, and I would suggest using a long extension bar with a long breaker bar, so you can put a lot of control into it. Otherwise it's going to be easy to mar the torques because they're a bit stiff to start off with because they've been painted, and they're going to crack when the paint breaks, and then they'll come off really easily. So once we have everything disconnected, the way we're going to pull this off is I'm going to pull it up out of the support frames here. These 3 studs need to come up about 1 inch or so. Then this whole thing will come rearwards. Unfortunately though, there's a knob that's part of the door entry guard down here, which is just on the inside there. And so as we're sort of pulling forward, I need to get down here and separate those with my fingers so it comes clear, and then it will gradually move itself forward. And then that'll just come straight off. When we are putting it back on, what I find is probably the easiest way these holes here, where their corresponding screw holes are on the other side, when I put it on, I'm going to put it so it's got about an inch to go. So, because it's a bit hard to see where everything needs to be aligned, so it's got about an inch to go down in here. And then what I can do is look down here and align those studs, push them towards it, and then again I'm going to have to go and separate down the bottom here, so the door entry guard, that knob on that, will allow it to go forward. Still watching the alignment here so nothing gets scratched or anything along here. And then everything just pushes forward. And now what I can do is go in underneath here and align these holes and push it into place. For panel adjustment, if you're out of ideas, there's going to be the pretty obvious witness marks here from the painting where the screws were originally, so just put it back in that spot and then you can adjust from there. I found probably the best way to do it is start at the corner here and then down the bottom here, and then just align this side first and then work your way along here. We can just lower the front lid and then just adjust these as required to get the clearances that you want.